Welcome to What Is. Today, we are tackling the big one. And when I say big, I mean 2.4 billion people big. It's the religion that gave us the calendar we use, some of the world's most famous art, and a very specific excuse to eat a lot of chocolate in the spring. What is Christianity? Is it a set of rules, a historical movement, a global institution, or just a really long book club with internal drama that's been going on for 2,000 years? Today, we're looking at the history, the milestones, and the modern reality of the world's most followed faith. To understand Christianity, you have to understand the world it was born into. Imagine the first century. The Roman Empire is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the Mediterranean. They love roads, aqueducts, and executing people who start trouble. In a small, dusty corner of the empire called Judea, the Jewish people were waiting for a Messiah, a promised leader who would liberate them. Enter Jesus of Nazareth. Now, historically speaking, Jesus was a Jewish carpenter-turned-teacher who spent about 3 years wandering around Galilee. He wasn't talking about starting a new religion. He was talking about the kingdom of God, challenging religious authorities, and hanging out with the people society usually ignored: tax collectors, fishermen, and the less than reputable. His message was revolutionary: love your enemies. The first shall be last, and most importantly, that he was the Son of God. The Roman authorities, who generally preferred their subjects to be quiet and tax-paying, weren't fans. Neither were the local religious leaders. So around the year 33 AD, Jesus was executed via crucifixion, the Roman equivalent of a public warning sign. Usually when a leader is executed, the movement dies. But Christianity did the opposite. His followers claimed he rose from the dead 3 days later. Whether you view that as a literal miracle or a powerful narrative shift, that claim is the engine that drove everything that followed. Without the resurrection, Christianity is just a footnote about a radical teacher. With it, it became a global wildfire. Early Christianity wasn't called Christianity yet. It was just the way. It was a startup. And like all startups, it needed a move fast and break things guy. That was Paul of Tarsus. Paul is arguably the most important figure in the religion's history after Jesus. He was the one who said, "Hey, you don't have to be Jewish to follow Jesus." He took the message to the Greeks, the Romans, and the Gentiles. He wrote letters, epistles that make up a huge chunk of the New Testament. He was basically the first social media manager, except instead of Twitter, he used parchment and long-distance boat rides. For the first 300 years, being a Christian was risky. One day you're having a secret communion in a basement, the next you're being used as a human torch in Emperor Nero's garden. The Romans didn't like that Christians refused to sacrifice to Roman gods. It looked like treason. But then the ultimate plot twist happened in 312 AD. Emperor Constantine is about to head into battle. He claims to see a vision of a cross in the sky with the words, "In this sign, conquer." He wins the battle, becomes emperor, and suddenly, being a Christian isn't just legal, it's trendy. By 380 AD, it's the official religion of the Roman Empire. Christianity went from a persecuted minority to the CEO of Western civilization in record time. Talk about a glow up. Now that Christianity was the state religion, it had to get its story straight. This led to the great era of councils. Bishops from all over the world gathered to argue about the fine print. Is Jesus God? Is he man? Is he both? How does the Trinity work? The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD gave us the Nicene Creed, which is still recited in churches today. It was basically a corporate merger agreement that tried to make sure everyone was reading from the same hymn sheet. But as with any large organization, the bigger it got, the more people argued. For 1,000 years, The church was largely split into two hubs, Rome in the west, Latin-speaking, and Constantinople in the east, Greek-speaking. In 1054, they had the ultimate breakup. It's called the Great Schism. The Pope in Rome and the Patriarch of Constantinople basically sent each other your dumped letters. Actually, they excommunicated each other, and the church split into the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. They disagreed on things like the authority of the Pope and whether you should use leavened or unleavened bread for communion. It sounds like small stuff now, but at the time, people were willing to go to war over it. Fast forward a few hundred years to the 1500s. The Catholic Church is now the most powerful entity in Europe. It has land, armies, and controversially, a system called indulgences, where you could essentially pay the church to get your relatives out of purgatory. Enter Martin Luther, a German monk with a law degree and a very short temper. In 1517, he supposedly nailed 95 theses, essentially a list of complaints, to the door of a church in Wittenberg. Luther's big idea. You don't need the church as a middleman, you just need faith and the Bible. Thanks to the newly invented printing press, the 16th century's internet, Luther's ideas went viral. This was the Protestant Reformation. Europe spent the next century in a series of brutal wars over which version of Christianity was the right one. This resulted in the explosion of denominations we see today. Baptists, Methodists, Lutherans, Presbyterians, Anglicans. If you've ever wondered why there are 4 different churches on the same street corner, you can thank the 16th century for that. By the 18th and 19th centuries, Christianity was hitching a ride on the back of European colonialism. As empires expanded into Africa, the Americas, and Asia, they brought their Bibles with them. Sometimes this was done through genuine missionary work. Other times, it was forced upon indigenous populations as a tool of control. It's a complex, often dark chapter of the history, but the result was that Christianity became a truly global religion. But then came the 20th century, the world wars, the rise of communism, and the scientific revolution. In the West, Europe, and North America, secularism began to rise. People started asking if they really needed the old traditions. Church attendance in places like England and France plummeted. Some predicted Christianity would just fade away, but they were looking in the wrong direction. While the old world was getting less religious, the global south was exploding. Today, there are more Christians in Africa than in any other continent. Brazil has some of the largest church gatherings on earth. China, despite government restrictions, has a massive underground Christian population. In the modern context, Christianity isn't a Western religion anymore. It's a global South religion. So what is Christianity in the 21st century? If you walk into a church today, depending on where you are, you might see a high-tech megachurch in Texas with smoke machines, electric guitars, and a pastor in designer sneakers. An incense-filled Orthodox cathedral in Ethiopia where the liturgy is chanted in a language over 1,000 years old. A quiet Catholic Mass in a rural village in Poland. Or a house church in a country where practicing the faith is still illegal. Despite the differences, a few core pillars remain the same for almost all of them. First, the person of Jesus, whether viewed as the literal Son of God or the ultimate moral teacher, he is the center of the orbit. Second, the Bible, a collection of 66 to 73 books, depending on who you ask, that serves as the foundation for ethics, history, and theology. Third, the Great Commandment, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. Of course, if you watch the news, it's easy to see where that loving your neighbor part gets complicated. Christianity today is often at the center of political debates, regarding social issues, science, and government. It's a religion that contains both the people building hospitals and the people starting crusades. It's a faith of massive charity and massive controversy. In the end, Christianity is a story of a Jewish teacher who died a criminal's death and left behind a handful of terrified followers. Somehow that small group turned into a movement that shaped the very fabric of human history. Whether you're a believer, an atheist, or something in between, you're living in a world that has been profoundly edited by Christian thought. From the way we view human rights to the way we count the years, it's everywhere. So, the next time you see a church steeple or hear a Christmas carol, you're not just looking at a religion. You're looking at a 2,000-year-old experiment in what happens when a message of love your enemy meets the messy reality of human nature. Thank you for joining us on What Is. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of the world's largest faith, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next episode. Is there a topic you've always wondered about? Let us know in the comments below. We read them all, well, most of them. We're only human. See you next time.